Warm welcome to all the students. This is English class for 10th standard. I am Jyoti Bhamra, English mistress at Government Senior Secondary School, Kot Badal Khan, Jalandhar. Today, I am going to teach you a very interesting story, The Homecoming. This story has been divided into three parts. Today, we are going to do part 1. The present story is written by Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was a Bengali poet, short story writer, song composer, playwright, and a painter. In 1913, he became the first non European to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. He is the composer of our national anthem. Students, try to give the answers of the questions. Number 1. Which is the place where you feel most secure? Number 2. Which is the place where you feel most comfortable? Number 3. Which is the place where you feel most loved? All these questions have only one answer. That is home. Home is the place where you feel most secure, comfortable, and loved. Before we start the story, let us know about the characters. Here are 6 main characters in the story. Fatik Chakravarti, a 14 years old boy. Makhan Chakravarti, Fatik's younger brother. Mother, Fatik and Makhan's mother. Bishambar, Fatik's uncle, mother's brother. Aunt, Bishambar's wife. Cousins, Bishambar's children. The characters will be more clear to you when you will listen to the story. Before giving you detail, I would like to give you a brief introduction of the story. Childhood is a time for constant care and nurturing. A boy of 14 wants to fly and see the world. But at the same time, he needs all the affection and attention of the people who are closer to him. What happens to a boy who leaves his home and stays with his relatives? Is his own home the only and real paradise for him? This is the issue that R.N. Tagore explores in the story. Students, ਇਹ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਇੱਕ 14 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਲੜਕੇ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਦੇ ਰਿਲੇਟਿਵਸ ਮਤਲਬ ਮਾਮਾ ਮਾਮੀ ਕੋਲ ਰਹਿਣ ਲਈ ਭੇਜ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਰੀਏ ਰਵਿੰਦਰਨਾਥ ਟੈਗੋਰ ਕੀ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਲੜਕਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਰਹਿਣ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਹੀ ਉਸਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਸਲੀ ਸਵਰਗ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਥੀਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੜਚੋਲ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਲਿਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਲੈਟਸ ਰੀਡ the text. Students, give attention to the pronunciation while I read. Fatik Chakravarti was the ringleader amongst the boys of the village. One day, a plan for new mischief entered his head. There was a heavy log lying on the mud flat of the river, waiting to be shaped into a mast for a boat. His plan was that they should all work together to shift the log by main force from its place and roll it away. The owner of the log would be angry and surprised, while they would all enjoy the fun. Everyone supported the proposal and it was carried unanimously. But just as the fun was about to begin, Makhan, Fatik's younger brother, sauntered up without a word and sat down on the log in front of all them. The boys were puzzled for a moment. One of them pushed him rather timidly and told him to get up, but he remained quite unconcerned. He appeared like a young philosopher meditating on the futility of things. Fatigue was furious. Makhan, he cried, if you don't get up this minute, I'll thrash you. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position. Now, if Fatik was to keep his regal dignity before the public, it was clear that he must carry out his threat. But his courage failed him at the crisis. His fertile brain, however, rapidly seized upon a new maneuver which would discomfort his brother and afford his followers added amusement. He gave the word and command to roll the log and Makhan over together. Makhan heard the order and made it a point of honor to stick on. But like those who attempt earthly fame in other matters, he overlooked the fact that there was peril in it. The boys began to have the log with all their might, calling out, "One, two, three, go!" And the word go, the log went, and with it went Makhan's philosophy, glory, and all. The other boys shouted, themselves hoarse with delight. But Fatik was a little frightened. He knew what was coming, and he was not mistaken, for Makhan rose from Mother Earth, blind as fate and screaming like the Furies. He rushed at Fatik, scratched his face, beat him and kicked him, and then went crying home. The first act of the drama was over. Fatik wiped his face and sitting down on the edge of a sunken barge by the river bank, began to nibble at the pieces of grass. A boat came up to the landing, and a middle-aged man with grey hair and dark mustaches stepped on the shore. He saw the boy sitting there doing nothing and asked him where the Chakravartis lived. Fatik went on nibbling the grass and said, "Over there, but it was quite impossible." But it was quite impossible to tell where he pointed. The stranger asked him quite again. But it was quite impossible to tell where he pointed. The stranger asked him again. He swung his legs to and fro on the side of the barge and said, "Go and find out," and continued to nibble the grass. But at the last moment, a servant came down from the house and told Fatik that his mother wanted him. Fatik refused to move, but on this occasion the servant was the master. He roughly took Fatik up and carried him, kicking and struggling, in impotent rage. When Fatik entered the house, his mother saw him and called out angrily, "So you have been hitting Makhan again?" Fatik answered indignantly, "No, I haven't. Who told you that I had?" His mother shouted, "Don't tell lies, you have." Fatik said sullenly, "I tell you I haven't. You asked Makhan." But Makhan thought, It best to stick to his previous statement. He said, "Yes, mother, Fatik did hit me." Fatik's patience was already exhausted. He couldn't bear this injustice. He rushed at Makhan and rained on him a shower of blows. "Take that," he cried, and that for telling lies." His mother took Makhan's side in a moment and pulled Fatik away, returning his blows with equal vigor. When Fatik pushed her aside, she shouted, "What, you little villain? Would you hit your own mother?" It was, it was just at this critical moment that the grey haired stranger arrived. He asked what had occurred. Fatik looked sleepish and ashamed. So, this was the reading of the text. Students, here is vocabulary for you. Let us go through the word and meaning. Nurturing, encouragement. Ringleader, the leader in any prank or mischief. Mudflat, stretch of muddy land. Unanimously, collectively, without opposition from anyone. Sauntered, walked slowly and silently. Timidly, courageously, in a cowardly manner. Meditating, thinking deeply. Futility, uselessness. Furious, very angry. Thrash, beat or flog. Students, the words in red color are the same words which we have recently done. So, pay attention. Fatik Chakravarti was the ringleader amongst the boys of the village. One day, a plan for new mischief entered his head. ਫਟੀਕ ਚੱਕਰਵਰਤੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਰਾਰਤਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੀਡਰ ਸੀ, ਮੁਖੀਆ ਸੀ। ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਉਸਦੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਰਤ ਆਈ। There was a heavy log lying on the mud flat of the river, waiting to be shaped into a mass for a boat. His plan was that they should all work together to shift the log by main force from its place and roll it away. ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਨਦੀ ਦੇ ਚਿੱਕੜ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿਨਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਟੁਕੜੇ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਰਖਤ ਦਾ ਲੱਕੜੀ ਦਾ ਟੁਕੜਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸ਼ਤੀਆਂ ਬੰਨਣ ਲਈ ਮਾਸਟ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਜਾਣਾ ਸੀ। ਉਸ ਦਾ ਪਲਾਨ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਲੱਕੜੀ ਦੇ ਟੁਕੜੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਸਥਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਰੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਮਾਖਨ, ਸਾਊਂਟਰਡ ਮੀਨਸ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਕਿਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਲੱਕੜੀ ਦੇ ਟੁਕੜੇ ਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। The boys were puzzled for a moment. ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਈ ਘਬਰਾ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ। One of them pushed him rather timidly and told him to get up, but he remained quite unconcerned. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਨੇ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਕਾਇਰਤਾ ਨਾਲ ਭਜਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ, ਪਰ ਮਾਖਨ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਧਿਆਨ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ। He appeared like a young philosopher meditating on the futility of things. ਮਾਖਨ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੈਠਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਫਿਲਾਸਫਰ ਅੰਤਰ ਧਿਆਨ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਜ਼ੂਲ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦਾ। ਫਟੀਕ was furious. ਫਟੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਗਿਆ। ਮਾਖਨ, he cried, "If you don't get up this minute, I'll thrash you." ਮਾਖਨ, ਉਸਨੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਦੀ ਬੋਲਿਆ, ਜੇ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਨਾ ਉੱਠਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੁੱਟਾਂਗਾ। Again, we have vocabulary. Regal, royal. Carry out, fulfill. perform. Crisis, difficult time. Fertile brain, brain capable of plenty of thoughts. Maneuver, clever plan. Discomfort, annoy. Amusement, happiness, entertainment. Earthly, worldly. Peril, danger. Glory, fame. Shouted themselves hoarse. Shouted excitedly until their voices became rough. Blind, one who cannot see. Unreasonable. Furies, angers. So these were the word meanings. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position. Now, if Fatiq was to keep his regal dignity before the public, it was clear that he must carry out his threat. But his courage failed him at the crisis. Students, ਫਟੀਕ ਦੇ ਡਰਾਉਣ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਮਾਖਨ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਟਦਾ, ਬਲਕਿ ਉਹ ਹੋਰ ਆਰਾਮਦਾਇਕ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਬੈਠ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਫਟੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਆਈਡੀਆ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸ਼ਰਾਰਤ ਸੁਝਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਮਾਖਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਦੇ ਸਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੋਸਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਫਨੀ ਐਕਟੀਵਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਸਕੇ। ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਲੌਗ ਨੂੰ ਧੱਕਾ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਅਤੇ ਮਾਖਨ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਖਿੱਚ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਗਈ। The other boys shouted themselves hoarse with delight, but Fatiq was little frightened. He knew what was coming, and he was not mistaken, for Makhan rose from Mother Earth, blind as fate and screaming like the Furies. He rushed at Fatiq, scratched his face, beat him and kicked him, and then went crying home. The first act of drama was over. ਜਦੋਂ ਮਾਖਨ ਨੀਚੇ ਗਿਰ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਬॉयਜ਼। ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮਾਖਨ ਦਾ ਰੋਣਾ ਫਟੀਕ ਲਈ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏਗਾ? Again, we have to do word meanings. Sunken, something that is submerged in water. Barge, a long flat bottomed boat for carrying freight on canals and river. Nibble, to chew. Impotent rage, helpless anger. Fatiq wiped his face. Fatiq wiped his face and sitting down on the edge of a sunken barge by the river bank, began to nibble at a piece of grass. A boat came up to the land. Fatiq wiped his face and sitting down on the edge of a sunken barge by the river bank, began to nibble at the pieces of grass. A boat came up to the landing, and a middle-aged man with grey hair and dark mustache stepped on to the shore. He saw the boy sitting there, doing nothing, and asked him where the Chakravartis lived. Students, ਮਾਖਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਾਈ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਫੇਸ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਕਿਨਾਰੇ 'ਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ, ਨਦੀ ਦੇ ਕਿਨਾਰੇ 'ਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਘਾਹ ਦੇ ਟੁਕੜਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਚਬਾਉਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਸ਼ਤੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੁਕੀ ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਮਿਡਲ ਏਜਡ ਮੈਨ, ਦਰਮਿਆਨੀ ਉਮਰ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਦਮੀ ਉਤਰਿਆ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਗ੍ਰੇ ਵਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਗੂੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਮੁੱਛਾਂ ਸਨ। ਉਸਨੇ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿ ਚੱਕਰਵਰਤੀਸ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ। ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ, ਉਸੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਤੋਂ ਨੌਕਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੇਰੀ ਮਦਰ ਨੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਘਰ ਬੁਲਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ ਫਟੀਕ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਮਨਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਨੌਕਰ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਮਾਸਟਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਨੌਕਰ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਘਰ ਲੈ ਗਿਆ। Again, here are word meanings: indignantly, annoyingly, sullenly, with a bad temper, sulkily, stick to, continue doing, exhausted, extremely tired, injustice, inequality, vigor, force, occurred, happened, sheepish, embarrassed. When Fatiq entered the house, his mother saw him and called out angrily, "So, you have been hitting Makhan again?" ਜਦੋਂ ਫਟੀਕ ਘਰੇ ਆਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਗੁੱਸੇ 'ਚ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਫਿਰ ਮਾਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਕੁੱਟਿਆ ਹੈ। Fatiq answered indignantly, "No, I haven't. Who told you that I had?" Fatiq ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਰਿਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੌਣ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੀਤਾ? His mother shouted, "Don't tell lies, you have." ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਮਦਰ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਹੀ ਕੁੱਟਿਆ ਹੈ, ਝੂਠ ਨਾ ਬੋਲ। ਜਦੋਂ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਮਾਖਣ ਨੇ ਝੂਠ ਬੋਲ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਫਸਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਫਟੀਕ ਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਫੁੱਟ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਮਾਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਦਰ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਬੁਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁੱਟਦਾ ਹੈ। His mother took Makhan's side in a moment and pulled Fatiq away, returning his blows with equal vigor. ਤਾਂ ਮਦਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁੱਟਿਆ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਫਟੀਕ ਨੇ ਮਾਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਿਆ। Then it was just that this critical moment that the grey-haired stranger arrived. He asked what had occurred. Fatiq looked sheepish and ashamed. The students ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟ੍ਰੇਂਜਰ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਬੋਟ ਤੋਂ ਉਤਰ ਕੇ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਸੀ, ਫਟੀਕ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਅਚਾਨਕ ਹੀ ਉਸੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਉਹ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। Students, here is vocabulary exercise for you. Fill in the blanks with adjective forms of the following words. Number 1, Fatiq had a dash brain. Number 2, he behaved in a dash manner. Number 3, he knew that it was a dash attempt. Number 4, by night he had become dash. Number 5, Makhan sat on the log in a dash mood. Try to fill the answers. Now let us check your answers. Number 1, Fatiq had a fertile brain. Number 2, he behaved in a dignified manner. Number 3, he knew that it was a futile attempt. Number 4, by night he had become delirious. Number 5, Makhan sat on the log in a philosophical manner. Again, there is a vocabulary exercise. You will have to complete the following expressions in the same way. Makhan was as good as gold. Number 1, as white as dash. Number 2, as black as dash. Number 3, as innocent as dash. Number 4, as obstinate as dash. Number 5, as gentle as dash. Let us check your answers now. Number 1, as white as snow. As black as coal. As innocent as a lamb. As obstinate as a mule. As gentle After vocabulary exercises, we have grammar exercise now. Fill in the blanks with the correct verb from the italicized words. Number 1. All Indians should try to dash their motherland. Option is glory. Number 2. Makhan sat and dash in a corner. Option is sulk. Number 3. Fatik was not dash by Makhan's antics. Option is amusement. Number 4. Mother was dash at Fatik's ways. Option is distress. Number 5. Fatik's patience was already dash. Option is exhaust. Number 6. Fatik's aunt constantly dash him. Option is despise. Number 7. One day he dash his patience. Option is loss. Students, try to fill in the blanks with the help of the given options. Now, let us check your answers. Number 1. Glorify. Number 2. Sulked. Number 3. Amused. Number 4. Distressed. Number 5. Exhausted. Number 6. Despised. Number 7. Lost. Very interesting homework for you. Answer the following questions. Number 1. Who was Fatik? Number 2. What was the new mischief Fatik thought of? Number 3. Why were Fatik and his friends annoyed with Makhan? Number 4. What was Fatik's new maneuver? Number 5. Why did Fatik beat Makhan even in the presence of his mother? Number 6. Was Makhan speaking the truth? The presentation is by Rajwinder Kaur, English mistress at Government Middle School, Rudki Kala, SBS Nagar, Punjab, and voiceover by Jyoti Bhamra, English mistress at Government Senior Secondary School, Kot Badal Khan, Jalandhar.